Good morning. We are at the creek this morning on Los Gatos Creek. Steve Holmes here, Executive Director with South Bay Clean Creeks Coalition. We have Josh Lopez assisting with the camera work. And then we have Aaron Adams over here, one of our leads that helps with the monitoring of the fish and other matters with our creek. So unfortunately, because of COVID, we had to sort of adjust, and we want to get people down to the stream because there are fish right now that are actively spawning in Los Gatos Creek, and we are actually standing right next to a red that's off to our left right here. And so if you look, what are you seeing? When I say red, for some they might be confused, and you can hear there's a female fish that's kicking up wakes over here. So we have a female sitting on this red, and we'll try and get some better angle shots on this. But I want to talk a little bit about just a little bit of background, history of what's been happening with the watershed and our Chinook salmon here. This is the late fall run for our Chinook salmon, and typically we see this happening, the start of it, about mid-November. But because of the rains or lack of rain this year, we kept looking to see when are we going to start seeing the fish, when are we going to start seeing the fish, and it was only until this last Wednesday we were doing a cleanup about, I'd say about a mile downstream from here, and one of the people that was living along the stream, one of the homeless people, indicated that he had seen about 8 fish in the pool right next to where the camp was. And so we took that information and started looking. Our effort prior to that had been looking in the downtown area where we typically see the fish. Once you get these, you can hear the female over here kicking and splashing. So and she's now moved on. You can see the wake in the background. She's moved over to that pile of brush, and so she keeps coming back and forth. So because of the low rain flow, we had assumed that the fish would be in the downtown area, yet we weren't seeing any indicators, like this, which to the left here, or my right, is a red. And so what this is actually the nest. And so we've had, when we first got here, there were probably 3 or 4 fish that were on this red, and then you had a male and a female that have paired up, and they have spawned, and this nice clean rock is the evidence that this is a red. Because typically when you look down at a stream, you would see mossy, dirty, silted up rock, but all of this looks really polished. And so what happens is the female will come in, and she will dig a hole in front of this and transport all that loose gravel up onto that pile. And then the male and female get together, they spawn, the eggs are then deposited into the red or nest, and then the female will continue to add rock. And that's right now what's happening, is this female has stayed on with this red and is continuing to build up that nest. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but getting back to this year's run, not only have we had low seasonal rain, and we keep hearing the female over here. Josh, why don't we have you just point in that direction, and I'll talk, but we'll see the wake from the fish as she keeps returning. This year, what we've had happening is we've had Anderson Dam on Coyote Creek. The Water District is doing, and you may have seen her pick up there, but the Water District is doing a project to rework that dam. And so there's been a large release of fresh water from that dam, which could, in effect, we were theorizing, attract some of the fish that were in the bay to come to go up Coyote Creek, be fooled by that water run and think, okay, this is my source and I'm going to go up that way. So we anticipate that some of the fish may have gone up Coyote Creek. We don't monitor that stream, so if the fish went up there, unfortunately, that's beyond our capacity of monitoring at this point. So when you've had these drought conditions, typically the fish can't get this far up into the watershed, so we'll see spawning down near the airport, San Jose Mineta Airport, in that main stem of the Guadalupe, all the way up to where SAP Center is. There's some nice pools and some areas where we've seen the spawning going on. So a little bit about, and Josh, why don't you just keep looking at the red, and hopefully we'll get some action footage of the female when she returns here, and I'll keep talking. But our monitoring teams, we have assigned people. There's about 50 people that have joined up and are actually working with us at different segments of the stream. We train them in what to look for, the reds. We're actually attaching up other things like no fishing signs, and I've got an example of that I'll show you in a moment. But yeah, she's right here. She is active here. But so this has been going on for about a month, and now we're starting to see action. So these monitoring groups are starting to alert us to that the fish are in. If you want to learn more about this activity by our group, you can actually go to our website, and we have a 3-year history on Google Maps showing where we saw the reds, where we saw the carcasses, where we saw live fish. And that is, if you go to the website and you go to the tab Wildlife Successes, and if you scroll down, the first success obviously is our local beaver that have returned, but as you move down a little bit further on that page, you'll see information regarding the Chinook salmon. And then there is actually a link there in blue that says, it talks about where the maps are for the last 3 years. And if you click on that, then you can actually look at the map and see all of the action that we've had for the last 3 years. We're building the new one for this year, and again, things really went from like 0 to 60 miles an hour when we had and this fish is coming back down here. Hopefully we'll get a shot of her on the nest. Yeah, she's on the road right there. See the little splash? So she's right here, right now. Okay, hopefully you guys saw that splash. That's the female coming back down. So we have a permit through the Department of Fish and Wildlife, and as part of our work, what we're trying to do is we are trying to find out the origin of the fish that we have in this watershed. And a couple of the things that help us with this is, I've got an example of a Chinook salmon here, and what we're looking for are 2 possibilities with these fish, and they all tie to this little fin right here, which is an adipose fin. And this adipose fin, for the hatchery fish, what they will do with 25% of the fish is they snip that fin off, and then in the head of the fish, and these fish are this long, they put a coated wire tag into the bone structure on their head. And what this does is it allows us to know that if this fin is missing, then it's definitely a hatchery fish. But where it gets confusing is that 75% of the fish that come from these hatcheries don't have that fin removed. So that means that could this fish be a stray native fish that came from another watershed and is strayed into into this area, or the Guadalupe watershed. It could also be a fish that was born on a local red that was originally 2 hatchery fish that got together, and when that fish emerged and returned out to the ocean and now has come back in, it could be a native fish to this stream, and then it gets a little bit more confusing. But so as far as the monitoring that we're doing with this, again, if it's a hatchery fish, we're taking the head, and then at the end of the season, we give all of those fish to the Department of Fish and Wildlife, their fisheries biologists, and they remove that little tag. And that little tag in the forehead tells the origin of the fish, which hatchery it came from, what year it was born, where it was released into the watershed, and more. And so this helps with the database that the Department of Fish and Wildlife has for this region. We're the only group here on the Guadalupe that does this sort of work, but really the prize that we're looking for is these fish that have the adipose fin, we want to know more about them. We want to know, is this a fish that originated from this watershed? So what we do with the fish that have that adipose fin, we will take the eyeballs, which is a bit gruesome, I know, and there's a little bone in their ear called an otolith, and we remove those, and we are working with UC Davis. UC Davis does testing on those for us, and we also are working with the Guadalupe Coyote Conservation District, and they have provided funding for the work that we're doing, and we received a nice grant that will pay for the testing that will be done on the fish for last year, and then going forward for this year, and then we'll look at where we stand after this year and what we find. But the UC Davis work should be good, because not only are they going to support us with the testing, but they also may want to become a little bit more involved with water testing, because that's one of the aspects of this. So just a quick overview on the testing. What they will do is, with the eyeballs, they actually open up the eyeball, there's a lens in there, and they'll peel back like 4 or 5 of the layers, and then they test that. And what that test, it's tested for 3 elements, one being nitrate. And when they are doing this testing, it will tell when that little fish leaves the red, emerges from the red, there's chemicals that are associated with the water, and that testing can actually tell which watershed that fish emerged from or came from, and it can also drill down to the tributary. So like it could be a Los Gatos Creek fish. And so that's what's really kind of exciting, is we're going to find out more about what's actually going on with these fish. So let's talk a little bit about the life cycle of the fish, and why don't we have you just pan back over on the red, and hopefully we're gonna see something here. But as far as the life cycle, people will ask, well, where do these fish come from? And it's interesting. They actually came from the Pacific Ocean. They swim under the Golden Gate Bridge. They come into the bay, and then these fish are moving through the South Bay and coming all the way down here, and coming up into the Guadalupe watershed. And you find us on Los Gatos Creek, which is a tributary of the Guadalupe. Then, as we've seen with this red, the males and the females will come together, and they'll spawn on this spot, emerge, or they'll deposit the eggs, the fertilized eggs, into this red. And then there's about a 90-day time frame. And this is also tied to not only 90 days, but it's sort of tied to water temperature. So this 90-day marker, it could be less, it could be more, but those fish will start emerging from that rock nest. So they'll stay in this watershed after that for about 90 days, and then after 90 days, they will move and out-migrate to the Pacific Ocean. And there they'll spend the next 2 years, up to, in this watershed, it's usually about 2 to 3 years, and they're returning. But in some watersheds, like up on the Kenai River up in Alaska, fish could be 6-7 years out in the Pacific Ocean, and those fish will get up to just under 100 pounds, just monster fish. The biggest fish that we've seen here was about 30 pounds. And for a small creek like this, to have a 30-pound fish swimming around in it, it's awesome. So again, we had about 5 fish in this section of the waterway. We had another 8 a little bit further down towards like Blackbird Elementary School, and then as you move downstream towards like Azaray, we had 4 or 5 very large fish in that section, and then moving down closer to the downtown, we found more fish in that area. So we estimate that we probably saw on this first push probably 15 to 25 fish that came into Los Gatos Creek. Now, typically what we find with these runs from our monitoring is that 50% of the fish end up going up Los Gatos Creek, and 50% of the fish end up going up the Guadalupe, the main stem, and they'll proceed to the end of the valley towards Guadalupe Creek and Alamedas Creek. And so our monitoring groups are looking in that area, and at this point we really don't know what we're going to see, because it typically takes about another week for the fish to make it down towards the Guadalupe. So I mentioned it earlier, but one of the things that we've posted, our teams have posted, are these no fishing signs. And so if we're seeing fishing, that's illegal behavior, and people cannot be coming in here and poaching the fish. And yet 2 days ago we had a lad down here with a 3 fishing poles trying to poach the fish. Department of Fish and Wildlife was called in, and they unfortunately the person had left, but all eyes really need to be on these waterways. These signs you'll see along the waterway have the number for CalTIP. We encourage people to call in if you're seeing somebody that's illegally fishing in our waterways right now. And really it's kind of sad, because the selfish behavior of people just poaching these fish actually led to, numbers. In the 90s we had, 2,000 fish, possibly as many as 2,000 fish that called this watershed home. Now, over the last 3 or 4 years, we've been seeing 150 to 200 fish. So if we're ever going to break this cycle, we worked so hard to get all the trash out, and then to have people that have decided that they're just going to poach the fish, it really is disheartening. So we asked the community help us in this effort. If you're seeing people that are, illegally fishing, now we're not talking about the perk ponds. The perk ponds people can, fish in; those are not off limits. But the live stream, nobody should be fishing in this waterway. I do want to talk about one interesting aspect of this, and I hope that you guys are enjoying this conversation. I'm glad that we were able to do this. Again, it was frustrating. We had 2 of these events lined up for today. One was at 10, one was going to be at 11:30, and we had 60 people showed up, or were going to show up for each of them. And then we had that new COVID notice, and it really did not make sense, to have people coming in. Even though it's an outdoor activity and we could do social distancing, it's not the right thing to be doing at this time. So, bringing it to you is important because the fish are here now, and we wanted you guys to have a chance to see them. So, real quick, there's been a debate, and the debate has been, when did these fish actually make it into this watershed? Valley Water was saying that in the 80s they had a project where they released a lot of water, and again that attracted these strange Chinook that were in the bay to come up Los Gatos Creek and the Guadalupe, and that is how they felt the watershed became populated with the Chinook. But what we've discovered is that there's anecdotal stories. I was actually looking today at our Facebook post and some of the people that had shared the thing, and then the comments by these people, and like in one, this gentleman was saying that his grandfather shared with him back in the 30s that our rivers were just full of these salmon. So we know that the fish were here earlier than that, and an exciting study was done. They went into kind of the Native American sites where they'd done archaeological digs, and they had identified bones that appeared to be fish. So the GCRCD president, Rick Landman, decided, I think that there might be something we could determine from these bones. So they had the bones tested, and what they discovered was that several of those bones were actually salmon bones. So again, when we start talking about the origin of the fish, how long they've been in the watershed, truly, these fish have been here for thousands of years. I mean, no doubt about it. We don't need to be confused about this topic any longer, and that was really kind of an exciting, thing that we found out. So, we talked about the live fish, we've seen the red. Again, what we're looking for is these sites, but we're also, again, looking for the carcasses. And so when we got down here this morning, there was a carcass that had been pulled up on the water's edge, and if we can walk over here, you can actually see this male that we've collected. And again, because of the adipose fin, we know that this could be a native fish, and we'll be doing the test of the eyes and the otolith. But this is the second fish that we've identified. The first one we identified earlier in the week, I think it was Thursday, and it was down near the trestle, the active Caltrain's trestle, and that fish, we think, didn't have a head on it, and so we're like, well, why doesn't it have a head on it? It looked like it had been sort of beaten up, and we're thinking, so was that the raccoons that got it, or what was it? Let's have you just get out into the shade here. So was it the raccoons that got it, or what? And so as we were climbing up out of the waterway, there was a lady walking the trail right near Azaray, and she said, it's interesting that you mentioned a salmon, because one of our neighbors said that he was over here and he saw a great blue heron with a salmon in its beak. And so we're kind of wondering, is this the same salmon? But it was interesting, we're walking through this brushed area before we found the fish, and you could smell something rotting. And Chinook salmon have got a unique smell when they're starting to break down. And so we're like, well, we got to slow this down. Which way is the wind blowing? And so we started walking and, making sure we were still detecting that smell. And we were able to find the fish, amongst the reeds over there, near the Caltrans trestle. So this is actually our second fish that we've harvested. So far, and that fish had a, it did not have an adipose, did it? Aaron, did it have?
No, it did not have an adipose.
Okay, so
Can
the
you
other
point
one
out where
did
it
not
would
have
be?
an adipose fin.
What's that?
Can you point out where the adipose would be?
This was the fatty, it's called a fatty fin. That's the adipose.
Mm-hmm.
This one's actually melting right now.
Yep, so it is a male. That we were, okay, here's our fish over here. Let's see if we can get, we're going to swing back over here because that female is back over here splashing around.
Can we go in the water?
Where's the fish though?
Just back over there.
So what, no, the fish is right here. See it right there? Through the bushes you can see the fish. She's staged right to the right of the picture. Do you see her right there?
Yes.
And that looks like a female because her tail is all, what happens with the females is because they're digging this gravel, it basically peels all of the scales off and the flesh, and really they end up with a white tail. And if you look at some of our older video from like 3 days ago that Mike Tomorrow shot, you see one of the fish swimming by and she has a white tail, and that's because all of that flesh was sort of torn off as she was digging that gravel nest that she would eventually lay her eggs in. So again, what we're seeing here is we're seeing that cycle of life. And here we go. We got this female right back in here again. This is exciting. You never know if the fish are going to oblige, but this fish is right here on the nest. And hopefully you guys can see. You can see her tail fin sticking out of the water. And she's just happy as all get out right there. So, and that behavior you're seeing right now, that is her digging her red. She laid on her side and started digging on her with her tail. That's her digging her red, continuing to build. So what could be happening here is this could actually be after the red, after they've spawned, and she's continuing to put more gravel up on that nest. And she's just sitting there, and she'll probably swing over again and kick some more gravel up on that nest. So she's right there. This is awesome. I think she's going to do another series of digging. There she goes. Just through observation, you do learn a lot about these fish. The first year that we were seeing that behavior, I really didn't understand what we were seeing. But as time has gone on, you know, we do, you know, you learn more about the behavior of these fish. Okay, I think we're gonna call it a day. We'll like stand it for a little longer. Yeah, she's right there in full view right there. Hopefully you guys can see. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult because you have the reflection of the water, but you can clearly see that white tail keeps coming up, and she's just staged right, the red is right below where her tail is. There she is. So when they come into the waterway too, at the beginning, they are silver, chrome color. But as they live in the stream, over time, the fish begin to develop colors. And the colors could be like reddish purple, it could be green, it could be brown, it can be a combination of these different colors. And then what our fisheries biologist Brian Ali has said is that these fish will live in this water system for the fresh water after leaving the salt water for about 15 to 20 days, and then they basically pass. So this whole process is a pretty quick turn, but it's, you know, that cycle of life which is so exciting that we're seeing this, you know, up close. So she is right there. Hopefully you guys are all seeing this. We're just lucky that the timing was just perfect as we're sort of winding down this presentation. There she is. Okay, and off she's going, just flying along. They're amazing. They create boat wakes when they're swimming at that speed. So why don't we just spin it in this direction? So I'd like to thank everyone for spending some time today, and this will obviously live up on our Facebook page so people can reference and go back and look at it. And you know, we're just super excited that, you know, this really reflects on all the sweat equity that people, the volunteers in the community, whether it's corporate, the churches, you know, the schools, people living along the streams, or just people that are enthusiasts of fish and the environment. This is a win, and that we could take what was once a very polluted stream and give them the ability to come in here and, you know, successfully spawn is just a wonderful thing. And I do want to make one acknowledgement of Valley Water. Just upstream from this area, they did a gravel augmentation project 2 years ago over the summer, and we actually have some reds right in that area. So and we did last year as well. So no sooner was that rehab work done and reclamation work done, we had salmon coming in and spawning. So, you know, hats go off to the Water District for, you know, the work that they did in that section. We'd like to see more though, please. So again, thanks everyone for coming out today, and you know, we're going to continue to update, and just really glad that for the people that have watched, hopefully this was informative. So thank you very much.